What's up, Pickleheads? Welcome to another episode of Picklehead Podcast. You're with Spencer and Austin. We're excited to be here again this week. This week, we're going to talk about the serve. We're probably going to get into a lot of weird details, but some very important details. Some things we want you to be aware of. Some strategies to making your serve maybe a weapon instead of just something consistent or just something that happens as part of the game. And just go into detail about the serve. What's up, Oz?
Yo, yeah, like Spencer said, we're going to be talking about the serve. Something funny is every time before we start the podcast, me and Spencer will like double and triple check to make sure that the camera's going. I'm recording on my end. His camera's going. He's recording on his end. It's actually really funny. But it's like, I don't know if it's a OCD thing, but whenever I leave the house, and especially my wife, whenever we leave, we have to say the garage is closed. The garage is shut as we leave. Otherwise, we're just absolutely like paranoid the entire time. Even if we see it shut, we have to say it out loud. Or like my wife always says, I unplugged the curling iron. I unplugged the curling iron. She says it like 18 times. She's way worse than I am, but it was funny. Spencer just triple checked his camera, so I had to mention it. I think he's pretty similar in that way.
On that same note, so we used to have the same issue with the garage. I guess we're paranoid also. I could never remember actually pushing the button to close the garage when I'm backing out. And then a few minutes later, I'm like, I have no recollection whatsoever of pushing the button. And we'd have to come back. But I got an app recently that will show me if it's open or closed from my phone. So that saves me a lot of heartache.
That's what happens.
I don't have to stress about it so much.
If you can get an app for your garage, you're doing pretty well. That's all I can say. I'm not quite there yet.
It's actually pretty inexpensive. What's nice with that app too, you guys thought we were going to talk about pickleball today, but any Amazon deliveries, say you're ordering pickleball stuff. See, I related to pickleball.
There you go.
So I use MyQ with Amazon, and so our deliveries, especially when we're out of town, it's awesome. They get a separate code every time, and they're able to, with their device, open our garage, set the package inside, and close the garage. So we don't have to ask a neighbor to put it in there or whatever. So anyway, it's called Key. Amazon Key, sorry. Key. Anyway, back on pickleball, the serve. Let's go into first a little bit about the serve rules. Is that good with you, Oz?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Okay, so I actually have pulled up here just a quick summary of the rules, which somebody can, I don't know. Seems like you can kind of bend the rules slightly, especially on the pro scene. These rules are being bent pretty often, but we'll go into that. So the server's arm must be moving in an upward arc when the ball is struck. So in other words, low to high, right? It's like, duh. Okay, we get it. We know that rule, okay? Low to high. All right, we'll do that. Paddle contact with the ball must not be made above the waist level. If you read further, it's actually talking about the belly button or navel area. So when you make contact with the ball, technically it's supposed to be below your belly button when you make contact. And I know for a fact there are quite a few people, including pros, that make contact above the waist level, but they're very rarely called on it. Yeah. And if they are called on it, let's talk about this first. The rule for that is, okay, illegal serve, and then the consequence for the illegal serve is redo. And so they're able to just reserve again and maybe get a legal serve in. There's no actual consequence like losing a point or getting a side out or anything like that. So first, Oz, I wonder what you think about that and how that should be changed. But it's like you can clearly see that someone is making contact above their navel, even though they're going from a low to high position. In my opinion, if you have repeat offenders, and there are repeat offenders, what do you think the rule should be if the ref calls them out on it?
Well, I was watching a match with Tyson McGuffin like 2 months ago, I want to say, and it was the first time I've ever seen him get called on his serve. And it was in a doubles match. Don't know who he was playing with, but he definitely hit it above. I think came down to his wrist. It wasn't the fact that it was not below his belly button, but it was the fact that his wrist was above like that 90-degree mark. I don't really know how to describe it. Right. And so they just said warning is what I heard. So I thought at that point maybe they had changed the rule to where it's like you do it twice in one match, automatic side out or second server. So I wasn't sure, but obviously you're reading the most up to date. Are those the 2023 obviously rules?
I need to look at that rule. I don't know the full rule, and I could scroll down here and find it, especially for PPA, which would be different. But
because the ref said warning, so you say warning because you're going to be punished if you do it again. So that was my only question. If you say warning, it's because you're going to get punished, but it's like it's not a punishment to just have to redo your serve.
Right, and I haven't seen someone get called twice on it, so
I haven't either.
We'll need to look that up, and maybe I will here in just a minute. But it's like you should lose the point, in my opinion, because if not, all it's causing that player to do is really push the limit. It's like, well, if they call me on it, I get a redo anyway, so I'm just going to push the limit as far as I can, which gives an unfair advantage to the opponent. Would you agree with that, or you think they shouldn't lose the point?
Yeah, I think they should lose the point if it happens a second time. But it's like the first time that it happens, I feel like everybody at some point's going to be really close on there. But I just hate when there's not refs and then other people are calling it, like the people that you're playing against are saying, hey, you're serving above your waist. It's like, you don't know where my belly button is, boy. But it's yeah. It's like it shouldn't be someone that you're playing against in a rec game especially, but also in a match if there's not even refs there. Let's say it's just one of those chiller tournaments. Nobody else should be making that call saying, hey, you're serving above your belly button. It's like, no. How about you worry about yourself and let's let the refs take care of that. If this tournament doesn't have refs, then obviously it's not important enough for you to be able to be saying something and you're obviously losing. So I don't know. It comes down to it can't be the other players making the call for me, and then also you do it twice with a ref there, then you should lose the point. It should be a warning the first time, and then 2 strikes you're out, not 3. Obviously, it shouldn't be a redo like how they're saying. I think that's a weird rule. So I wonder if that's been updated since, or if it will be updated in 2024.
Yeah, it might be. So I need to look that up and see. But anyway, when it says waist, it is talking about the navel. It talks about the drop serve for a minute. It says a drop serve is also permitted, in which case none of the elements above apply, which is also scary. So if you're doing a drop serve, which can't be done on the pro scene, but in rec, you can still drop the ball and serve it. You cannot bounce the ball. We know that in a drop serve. You have to drop the ball to serve it. But if you're dropping it from pretty high and you got some good bounce on it, it says the other rules don't apply. So it's like if it bounces high enough, you're able to technically, and I've talked to multiple people about this, and that is the rule. I mean, technically, you can almost hit an overhead, or a real hard drive where you're making contact, up higher towards your chest, because, it says none of the other rules apply after you bounce it.
Yeah, I don't think that'll last through 2024, because that's exactly why they took away the spin serve. You used to be able to either with one hand manipulate the ball. I think they got it from cricket, how they can kind of spin the ball with one hand. Is that from cricket? I don't even know.
I'm not going to pretend to know cricket.
They do some type of manipulation with the ball in cricket when they throw it. And so it puts spin on the ball, but that's kind of what you'd see with Zane Navratil spinning the ball. Then that you could also do it from the palm of your hand. You could spin, and it's called a chainsaw, so you're just kind of kicking up off your hand. But they took those away because they don't want pickleball to be like tennis, where it's all about the serve, who has the best serve. Because then it becomes boring, where it's just like ace here, ace there, or 3 shots and the point's over. So I would
Right.
imagine that rule will be changed because I think that could turn into, like you were saying, maybe not exactly an overhead because it's a pickleball. It's not going to bounce super high. But if you could jump or something and then drop the ball from really high and then hit an overhead or even just a hard topspin serve, they'll take that rule out really, really quick because they just don't want it to turn into a serving sport.
Yeah, and it might go away also. So I think it's been debated, and there's been people on both sides, like with the Zane saw serve, in other words, the spin serve. It's been debated to exhaustion whether or not it should have stayed. I don't really want to talk about that. But now that it's not here anymore, I have noticed, and refs are not able to see it. Some people are still able to when they throw up the ball before they serve. They still put a little bit of spin on it.
Yeah.
I've seen it on the pro scene. I've seen it in rec too. That they'll still, even though if it's not allowed in that a tournament, they're still putting some spin on the ball before they hit it. But the ref can't really say anything or prove that they did that. So it's kind of weird now. I think it's in a weird state.
Yeah, it is because
But
people have built that habit where some people, when they toss the ball up, they'll put spin on it. Like Jason Weedman, me and Spencer know him, but he's one of the really good 5-0s down here in southern Utah. And he automatically puts spin on it, and he still does just because he's not used to just opening up his palm. But I don't know
right.
if he's been called on it in tournaments or anything. But he plays a lot of tournaments, so who knows? There's kind of an awkward in between right now where people are trying to figure it out.
Yeah, it's weird. Like I think of, and I don't think she's doing it on purpose. I think of Georgia Johnson on the pro scene. I've seen her when she serves. I think she's still used to doing that spin serve before that. She still puts a little bit of spin on it. And then I actually posted a video on our page on Instagram the other day of me showing a serve that I called the whipping serve. People call it other things probably, but I noticed when I throw the ball, inadvertently I am actually putting a slight bit of backspin on it when I toss it up. Like I don't have like a flat hand thing there, and I've never been called on it before. No one's ever said anything. I don't know that it's affecting the other players for the most part, but I noticed from that video that I was doing it by accident. So I guess my point is I think there are some people still imparting some spin on the ball, and they might not even be doing it on purpose. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's in a weird place.
And if they start calling that, then it's just going to become, I don't know what you do. You just have to have an open palm, but I think it'll just become annoying, honestly, with redo, because people are just going
Oh
to
yeah.
naturally, you're going to put like maybe 1 mile an hour spin on the ball just by tossing it up. It's kind of hard to not put any spin. It's definitely a problem. I don't know how they'd solve it.
Yeah. So I'm going to read, we'll move on here a little bit to another part of the serve. I'm going to read this sentence off, and then together we're going to try to determine what it's saying. Um, Let me read it first, and then we'll see what our opinion is on what it's actually saying.
Okay.
It says, at the time the ball is struck, meaning the time the ball hits the paddle, okay, on the serve, the server's feet may not touch the court or outside the imaginary extension of the sideline or center line, and at least 1 foot must be behind the baseline on the playing surface or the ground behind the baseline. So the beginning of that to me seems pretty simple. It says before the ball is struck, the server's feet may not touch the court or outside the imaginary extension of the sideline. Okay. So if you're serving from the far right side of the court, your feet can't be outside the imaginary sideline that would continue to your right. If you're standing on the left side of the court, same thing.
But your
Or the
paddle can.
I don't know. It says at the time the ball is struck, the server's feet may not touch the court or outside the imaginary extension of the sideline
So paddle for
or
sure
center
can.
line.
Paddle for sure can, but
So
feet can't go beyond.
paddle can, yes, and
Right.
and I've always understood it that way, but it's the end of this sentence that I don't really understand. And it says at least 1 foot must be behind the baseline on the playing surface or or the ground behind the baseline. So it's like, are you saying I'm allowed to put 1 foot inside of the court when I hit the ball? How do you understand that?
Yeah, so it starts by explaining you can't go beyond the baseline and you can't go beyond the sideline with your feet. But you can't have your feet down doing that. But you can have 1 foot in the air and 1 foot has to be on the ground. So you can't do a volleyball serve, go throw your toss way forward all the way to the kitchen and jump to the kitchen if you've got mad hops and then hit your serve right from the kitchen, which I don't
Out
know
of the
why
air.
you'd
Yeah.
necessarily want to do that. I guess you could get some pretty good down angle, but it's like you still have to hit a third shot. So you'd be up in
Yeah,
the
then you
wrong
have to
position.
run back.
Be a good change up. But yeah, the way that I interpret it is if you look at Deckel Bar is a good example. If you go look up his serve, he stands sideways, I believe. Yeah, he stands sideways, left foot forward, and he'll hit his serve. His right foot stays down, and then his left foot stands forward, or it's vice versa. But like what it's saying
Yes.
essentially is that you have to keep 1 foot down as you're serving. The other foot can be in the air, but it can't be stepping in. That's the way I interpret it.
Until after you make contact with the ball.
Yes.
And that's the way I've always understood it. And I have seen people called on jumping when they serve. If both your feet are in the air when you make contact with the ball, if you don't have at least 1 foot on the ground, then they'll call you on that. So yeah, at least keep 1 foot on the ground. But Deckel has, I would say now that the spin serve is gone, I would say he by far has the fastest serve on tour, and it's pretty consistent. The ones he misses, it's worth it for him because he puts a lot of pressure on his opponent. But that's exactly what he does. I mean, all of his momentum is forward. One of his feet, like you said, is down on the ground while the other one is over the baseline, and he makes contact before his second foot lands in the court, which is technically legal. So I guess that's one way to put.
Well, here's a question for you, Spencer. What's more important for you on a serve? Would you say the Deckel pace, or would you say it's depth, like a Tyson McGuffin depth?
I was hoping this question would come up. I actually made a note of it, and in my mind, it's a mix of both. I think depth is important, but if you have depth and it's just a lobby, you know, serve without much pace on it, it's not helping you too much with the depth because the returner is able to really come over and smack that ball. But then at the same time, if you have pace, but then it's short in the court, that allows the opponent to come right up. And I know it's not an easy ball, but in my opinion, I like a little mix of both. You got to have some pace and you got to have depth. If I absolutely had to pick one over the other, if you're hitting the ball legally and you're hitting a legal serve, I would probably choose depth. If I had to pick one, but that depth typically always has to have a little bit of pace on it, or you at least got to impart some type of spin on it. Otherwise, if it's anything lofty or real slow and deep, you're in trouble anyway.
Yeah.
But what would you choose?
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you. I'd say the exact same thing. I would say when I'm returning a ball, the hardest ball for me to return is not just a depth ball. If it's deep and low, for some reason, that's pretty dang easy for me because I can chip that ball. I can hit underspin on it, and the ball's already low, so I just hit down on the ball as I'm moving forward, and it just goes in. But when it's deep and high, so not just fast, deep and high, not just fast, deep and low, but fast, deep and high, that's my least favorite serve to return. I don't know what it is, but it just feels like you can't get much on it. If you choose to slice from that position, it feels like the slice floats long a lot of the time. And if you choose to hit topspin from that position, it just feels like the ball is a bit closer to your body. You feel like kind of chicken winged as you're hitting the ball. So you can't get much depth on the ball, but definitely something that I just need to practice. But I'd say that that's the hardest combination is a high, deep, fast serve. And if that's a serve you can perfect, like the Julian Arnolds and Tyson McGuffins, then it's going to come down to executing on your third shot from then on out, because that's a really, really tough shot to return. Maybe they'll get lucky a couple of points, but you're just going to reel out some points, especially in singles, but also in doubles. I'd say if you can perfect a fast, deep, high serve.
Yeah, that's a good point. And the key point there being consistency. Because if you spend all this time trying to hit the perfect serve every time, but you can't get it in consistently, then it's hurting you more than it's helping you. And I think there's a lot of, and I think people can do it consistently. You know, I mean, like the people that you mentioned and others. I mean, their serve is consistent. But then you have people that are playing pro that are pretty successful, that their only thought is, I'm going to get my serve in. I think of Tyler Loong in this situation. He has probably the worst serve in all of pro pickleball, but it goes in every time. So for him, it's more important to hit the serve in than it is to try to get any type of advantage from it.
Yeah.
So it depends. Like you said, it depends on how confident you are in your third shot, also, and how you're able to put that ball away. Whether it's worth it to you to have a fast, deep serve, or just a serve that will consistently go in every time.
Yeah.
I mean, he's one that I can think of that has no pace. Someone that's improved their serve over time has been Pat Smith. He used to be the exact same way. I mean, you see this guy who's got one rolled up sleeve, and obviously works out, so he's going to put a lot of power on it. And his serve was like a baby serve.
Yeah.
You know, it was just, but it was in every single time. But I've noticed lately that he is putting a lot more pace and depth on his serve, and he is also missing every once in a while. So between consistency and, consistency versus pace and depth, I don't know. I guess it just depends on the person and the rest of their game. I think that's a good point that you made. Like, what's your third like after that? Are you planning on crashing every time when you do that? Are you able to follow up after your fast serve, or you just have a fast serve and hope that they hit a crappy return?
Right.
I don't know. So that's a good point that you make there. Let's see. The next line here says, the serve is made diagonally cross court and must land within the confines of the opposite diagonal court. A let serve is okay in rec play and in most tournaments. A let serve is when the ball hits the net but still lands within the box diagonally.
Something to note.
Yeah, go ahead.
Something to note, whether it's a let serve or not. So all the lines are in with your serve, cross court. So the center line, the side line, and the base line. But the kitchen line, it's the only line that's out during a serve. So just remember that. A lot of people will ask that question or say, hey, didn't that hit the kitchen? I mean, or didn't that ball hit the kitchen line? And then it creates this argument where people are like, no, that doesn't matter. It's a line is in. But it's weird because the kitchen line is actually out on a serve. Anyways.
Yeah, it's considered part of the kitchen. And that's the only time that I can think of. I can't think of any other time in general, not just on the serve. That's the only time in general that a line is not in, correct? Every other line throughout all of pickleball, every shot, a line is in, except for on the serve, that kitchen line is out.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe we're missing something big, but I'm pretty sure.
No, I mean, I can't think of anything, but that's a good point. You just, the simplest way to think of that is that when you're serving, the kitchen line is part of the kitchen. So if you're hitting it in the kitchen, then it's out. But yeah, on a let serve, I know one of the tours, the PPA, that it's a redo. I think Major League Pickleball, it's also a redo if it's a let serve. And in other areas, it's just play out the point. I mean, it's not that hard to get the ball most times if it's a let serve. It's not like tennis. So yeah, you got to serve diagonally. I don't think we need to go over the other basic, like whose turn is it to serve. I think we've gone over that before. I mean, I could go over it real basically if you think, Goss, but I was gonna
Yeah.
kind of skip through that part.
Why not? Let's just do a quickie.
Okay, so this says only one serve attempt is allowed per server. So here's the most confusing part of pickleball to everyone, and
Yeah.
it is kind of stupid. So there's three scores in pickleball for anyone just joining us or just getting into pickleball. You have 0, or the first score, which is your score. We're going to start at zeros. The next 0 is the second score or your opponent's score, and then the third number that you say will be which server you are on. So you only get how do I explain it? You only get 2 serves per side out, except here's the dumbest rule in pickleball. You start out on 0-0-2. In other words, we have 0, you have 0, but we're starting on our second serve instead of starting on our first serve. After that, throughout the entire game, it's 0-0-1. The person on the right will start serving, and then you always start serving on the right when you get a side out, and then 0-0-2 when it moves. When you lose a point, it goes, you get a second serve. Your partner will be serving that ball. If you lose that point, it's a side out, and it's the other team's turn to serve. But yeah, only one serve attempt is allowed per server, and then once it funnels through the next 3, then it's back to your serve. Did I explain that okay?
Yeah, I think that was short and concise too. I mean, anybody that's hearing that for the first time is going to be like, huh? And they'll have to go re-listen to it, but that's a select few that are hearing that for the first time. So if you have to go re-listen to that, click the back button a couple of times and then listen again. But I think you explained it well.
Yeah, feel free to rewind and listen to it again.
So
I don't think anybody wants that explanation again. Go ahead.
One other thing with it is the way that you can know whose serve is whose. Let's say that you're like, whose serve is it right now? Who's serving from what side? The only thing that you have to remember is how you start. So if I, Austin, start on the even side and Spencer starts on the odd side of the court, we're partners together, my score will always be even on the even side, and my score will always be odd on the odd side because I started on the even side. Whereas Spencer, since he started on the odd side, his score will always be odd on the even side and even on the odd side. So that's a way that you can know kind of the score depending on what side you're serving on or what side to serve on. So I'm not going to explain that again. Rewind it if you need to listen to it again, but that'll just confuse you more. But just
it is another thing that's confusing for people.
Yeah, people can't wrap their head around it.
But once you wrap your head around it, it's there, and you have it there for forever. So that way, when the score is 9-1, and they're like, well, and you're about to serve, and they're like, no, the score's not 9-1, and it's like, yeah, remember I started on the left, and now I'm serving from the right side, right?
Right.
And so our score would be odd. So we either have 7, or we have 9, or we have 11.
Right.
You know, which one is it? And they're like, okay, I guess you do have 9 because you're serving from that side. Anyway, it can help with the score, like Austin said, if you'll understand that. But rewind it until you do get it, and then once it's there, you'll have that for forever, and that'll help you at least calm the tone for some arguments, which I've had before. But I mean, thinking about it, I'm going to jinx myself, but really the only times I've had score arguments was more when I first started playing pickleball. I mean, I don't really have it anymore. Have you had any recently, Oz? Like, do you ever like get together with the guys and have a full-on argument about the score?
Not really. The most recent one was probably like a year and a half ago with my mother-in-law. And it's like, I go play with them, any of that family, and obviously they're all tennis players, so they're like, they have a racket background, but obviously could just destroy all of them just because I play so much more than them. Yeah. So it's not like the score was even close, but I was explaining it to it, and she lost it. She was like, because I had explained it like 2 weeks before to her, and I didn't explain it in the best way because I had learned it more so recently, but I explained it. And then when I explained it again, she's like, no, that makes no sense. You're totally wrong. And just kind of like lost her mind for a second. I was like, okay. But obviously we still won the game because nobody's going to beat me over there because I play all the time and they don't. It's not because I'm special or anything. It's just because you play people that don't play, you're going to win.
Yeah.
And yeah, just kind of a funny experience. But then after things calmed down, the game was over. I explained it to her again. And then she's like, oh, once she was like willing to listen. But I think that it'll create more arguments honestly than solutions, or what is the other word for an argument being done? I guess a done argument.
Resolution.
There it is. Yeah, it'll create more arguments than resolutions. So figure it out for yourself and then kind of keep it to yourself until the game's over.
Yeah, I like it. Wordle of the day is resolution.
There you go. Resolution.
People are like, oh, that's such a dumb word. Yeah, I'm going to start bringing out a pickleball word of the day. Maybe we'll start doing that next week or something. Be a good idea.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
I don't know what made me think of this, and it's not really related to the serve, but something blew my mind this week that I heard on a podcast. So maybe we can do an episode that focuses specifically on types of pickleballs and when to use what and where. But I heard this recently, and I'm just thinking about it again, and this is something I did not know. But on the pro scene in pro pickleball, they're typically playing with a Dura, which is an Onyx is the brand, DuraFast 40. That's more the harder, faster paced outdoor ball in pickleball, and that's most typical. I suggest playing that for that ball with anyone. The only other ball that's typically used in tournaments apart from the Dura is the Franklin X40, and that's a little softer. But did you know, Austin, that the DuraFast 40 used by the pros is a different DuraFast 40 than we go and purchase at the store?
I actually did know that.
Okay. I had no idea. This blew my mind. But it's not available to purchase. The only way that you're going to have those balls is, I guess, if you're stealing them from tournament play. But I guess it's even a little bit harder and maybe slightly heavier ball is what I'm told.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that it's a pound of difference, but you're talking like micro ounces different. But I had no idea that it was thicker and that it was a different ball than the Dura. I'm gonna contact Onyx. Like, why don't you just sell it to the public? It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't.
Anyway,
doesn't make any sense. They think that they need to make, because they're playing. You know why they do it? Honestly, let's be real. The reason that they do it is because those balls last longer, and so when they see the pros playing with these balls, it's not a continuous like new ball, new ball, new ball, new ball, which it still is, but it's not as often as you'd get with their basic ball that we all play with. But the reason that they're doing it is just so that it looks good on there. And then you go buy it thinking that it's the same thing, and then you get yours and it literally cracks after 10 minutes. You're like, what the freak?
Yeah.
But it's still worth
especially
having the
if
ball.
It's even slightly cold.
Yeah, slightly cold, that thing's cracked. And then it gets so wobbly, like there'll be a huge egg coming out of it after playing for 5 minutes. And then you get some micro cracks, and then it cracks all the way through after 10 minutes. It's kind of crazy. Crazy how expensive balls are.
You caught them, man. Yeah, I mean, they probably make those balls for maybe 10 cents a ball, manufacturing those in mass.
Maybe.
And then they sell them. I think the cheapest you can find for, say it's 20 cents per ball, whatever. Now they're selling them for $3 to $4 a ball.
Yeah, it's in between 3 and 4.
Crazy.
Even people that get discounts can't get it below 3. I mean, can't get it below 250 area, because I know people in town that have discounts that have an Onyx sponsorship and they can't even get it below 252 or around there.
Yeah, they must be killing it.
Yeah, they're killing it even with the discounts that they're giving to people. So
Onyx, we're calling you out. We're calling you out.
Yeah.
That,
We need a
that's
new
that's
ball.
got to be the reason.
Just to keep the subject going, we need a new ball. Someone has to create a ball and then flood a ton of money into it so that they can take over the PPA and APP. So there's no more
Yeah.
Dura or Franklin because these balls don't work for all conditions.
Oh, for sure. And I know that Major League Pickleball is addressing that concern, and it sounds like they're going to come out with their
Are
own
they?
ball. Mm-hmm.
Frick, that'd be
And
sick.
other tours might do the same thing once their contracts are up with Onyx or whatever.
10 years or whatever.
But yeah, I think related to the paddle issue, they were also going to come up with a universal ball to kind of help curb that. Anyway, I
That'd
heard
be
that
so
recently
cool.
too.
I
But
mean, I'm fine, honestly, if they just go full Dura or full Franklin, even though playing with a Franklin in the hot sun's horrible. But you can't go play a spring tournament and then it be either a Franklin or a Dura, and you train with a Dura and then go play the Franklin because your drops are going to be like a foot short. The balls are just totally different, which makes no sense. I don't know how the pros go and practice for like weeks before the tournament to make sure that they're fully prepped for the actual ball with that ball. So it's just
right.
kind of dumb. They're just so different, don't you think? Do they feel
Oh
super
yeah,
different to you?
there should be one universal ball. I mean, think about basketball. NBA plays with one ball. It's one size. Um, that they don't switch the ball around to a different brand or anything like that. It's just one ball. It doesn't play different anytime. It's the same exact ball every time.
Frustrating.
You have like deflate gate and that type of thing, like if you want to cheat and do it that way. But anyway, yeah, it should just be one universal ball, and it doesn't have to be Onyx or Franklin. In fact, I'd prefer it didn't be.
Same. Let's
Didn't
let's
be.
make it picklehead.
Yeah, and I know there's some other good balls out there that I've tried, but anyway, yeah, I think a universal ball would be so much better. Then we're not practicing. But that brings up another point. So there are, I mean, I guess we're kind of going away from the serve a little bit here. Somebody mentioned recently on Twitter, I don't remember who it was, that they think it would be a good idea, just like with professional tennis, to have different courts, like a clay court, with maybe a little bit different ball, or just like different surfaces on courts. But I disagree. I think the court should remain the same, but I'm interested to see what you think about that.
I'm not for it. Not at all. I don't think grass and a wiffle ball is going to work very well. And then like with clay's just a country thing. So like if you live in South America or Europe or something, you'll see some clay courts there. There's not really any clay courts in the US. There's like for tennis, there's few and far between. So it just wouldn't make any sense. People in South America would get tons of training on it. People in Europe would get tons of training on it. And then the rare few that live in rich areas would get training on it. I just don't really see it as being I wouldn't like it. I think that's stupid.
I wouldn't like it either, and you would have to use a different ball if it was grass or if it was clay. I mean, you would have to, and then all of a sudden it's mini tennis. And a lot of people that aren't familiar with pickleball, they say, well, it's mini tennis. Well, I disagree. I don't want it to be like tennis at all. And that's one of the ways
And
that
it's
I
really
don't want
not.
it to be like tennis either.
It's
Yeah,
not.
it's not. They don't understand that coming into it. And then when they start playing it, yeah, there's some similarities, but there's also similarities to ping pong. Or you could point out, yeah, well, there's also, strategy similarities to other sports. I don't want it to be mini tennis. I think we should keep pickleball. But
Yeah, I'm with you.
anything else on the serve, Oz? I mean, I'm sure there's more things to cover, but we've covered a lot of the basic points. I guess I should say let's one last point here, unless you have some others. Singles versus doubles. I think a deep, hard serve, and especially serve location, is so much more important in singles, because then you're defending your whole court, than it is in doubles. So again, in my opinion, and I think the opinion of many, the serve, a deep, fast serve, is so much more important in singles than it is in doubles. and it is important in doubles. But singles versus doubles, Os, how should your serve differ?
I think that the more advanced players are doing harder serves, and I think that it's going to turn into really, really good serves are going to be winning doubles matches, not just because of their serve, but because they have the serve and the rest of the package. But I think that the serve can win you a few free points in doubles as well. So I think it's just as important in that sense, but from the sense of in singles, if you're serving and your serve is poor, it's over automatically. So obviously singles has to be more important at the current rate. But something that I heard recently that's interesting is Kyle McKenzie. He's one of my favorite announcers.
He does great, yeah.
Yeah, he's awesome. And he said when he was watching a singles match, he said, you know what I'd like to see is I'd like to see so-and-so hitting their serve long rather than hitting it short or wide. And he was during this singles match. And I was thinking about it, and I'm like, yeah, that totally makes sense. Because if you're missing wide, it's just a direction issue. So you shouldn't be missing wide ever. You should never have that direction issue. You should be hitting it deep up the middle, if anything. And then if you're missing short, just put some height on it and try and miss it long. And then I watched this video of Julian Arnold a couple of weeks later, and he said, the way that I practice my serve is I try to hit it long over and over and over again until I eventually get it to where it's within a couple inches of the baseline over and over and over again. So then he has that consistency, and it's consistently a couple inches from the baseline because he started by hitting it long in practice, and then he slowly adjusted it. So a good way to practice your serve. But yeah, definitely in singles, I'd say it's for the most part more important. But I'd say it's veering more towards being really important in doubles. You have to have something on your serve, I think, if you want to get some extra free points. And sometimes you need it, especially against really, really good players at the pro level or even higher levels. What would you say?
That's a great idea. That's a great idea to drill it that way. Just drill it over and over, just deep, deep, deep until you can channel it in until it's right about there. And if you miss out 1 out of 10, but every, the 9 that you did hit in are legit serves, I think it's worth it.
Yeah, I'm with you.
If you can get the consistency of it. So get out there and practice that. Other than that, I don't have much else on the serve. I mean, I'm sure there's other items we could talk about on the serve, but we'll save that for another time. You got anything else, Oz?
No, that is it from us. Have a great week ahead. It's going to be coming out on Monday, so we will talk to you guys later.
Later.